start with a warm-up that we use when we're doing CrossFit. I'm a level 1 CrossFit trainer. I've been practicing CrossFit for over 15 years and training for about 10. And I'm also a martial arts instructor as well. I've been doing that for over 20 years. But so one of the first things that we did when Patty got into CrossFit with me is we just did the warm-up. CrossFit is a very active, it has a very active warm-up. It's not your typical stretching walk warm-up, it's you warm up by doing. So one of the things that we first do is joint mobilities. All right, so not your typical stretching where you lean down and touch your toes. It's more about making sure that all your joints that we're going to be using are working properly. So we're going to start, actually we're going to start in this case from the floor up. All right, so we're just going to work ankles. So why don't we have everybody stand up? We're going to move around and pin the aisles to make sure everybody can see us. All right, so we're going to just start from the middle here. All right. With your feet on the floor, just put your toe onto the rug and slowly move your ankles. All right, slowly form circles with your ankles. All right, keep the toe on the floor. Go both ways. All right. Excellent. The other foot, same thing. Again, both ways. Just like we did this morning, we're doing a lot of shaking, all right? So with that right foot again, just shake the leg a little bit, all right? That's also good for balance, all right? Absolutely, hold on to something, hold on to a person, hold on to your coach, all right, shake both legs, okay. If you have room, make sure you can, try this if you can. Put your feet together, all right? Bend your knees, hands on your knees, all right? And you're gonna do slight knee circles. All right, one of the issues that is very prominent in the Olympic community, I'm sure you know, is the hypermobility. All right, and so I'm very cognizant and aware of making sure that Patty's joints don't overflex in any particular position. All right, so now feet together again. We're going to do the same thing with the hips. All right, circles. Again, just like we did this morning, just loosening up. The most important muscle group and muscle area that we're going to work on is hips. Right? It's so important to make sure that every movement both ways comes from your hips. Excellent. Spread your legs a little bit. All right, and again, we're going to go back to that twisting motion. Very good. Excellent. All right, again, to the hips, we're going to bring them forward and back again. I focus a lot on hip mobility, hip strength, because that's where the core stability as well. Those are all big parts of just being healthy. And so now we're going to move it up. Shoulders forward. Right, now right about this time, I usually have to tell people to start breathing, right? As their faces turn blue, and so yeah, always focus on your breathing as well. And one of the things that martial arts teaches, as well as CrossFit, both ways, is synchronizing breath with movement. That is so important. Excellent, very good. Just let the head down, bring the head back and forth. Nice and slow. Excellent. Now bring it back to neutral position. Feel the shoulder. Nice and easy. Very good, and side to side. As we're doing this, try to keep your core nice and tight, all right? Excellent, all right? Small circles, bring it both ways. Excellent, very good. Shake it out a little bit, shake your legs, shake your arms. All right, so everyone have a seat. We're going to get started. Hope that helped.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you everybody for putting this on today. It's been quite emotional to just kind of, as we were driving in, realize I was going to meet people just like me today. Thank you very much, everybody. You can go to the next slide. Before lipedema, when was I active? what I did. I was always a pretty active person. I liked going to the gym. I liked doing activities with my husband. We met at a dance club. We still would go dancing and traveling, New York City, sightseeing, things, to keep us, strong as a couple and just taking part in life in general. And I always was still a gym person, and I would be on the elliptical for hours and the treadmill for hours and weights and whatever. And oh my God, nothing seems to be happening. I'm not losing any weight. I don't know what else to try. And my husband's always been very athletic. And he's like, unless you're in a closet somewhere binge eating at night, I don't get it. It doesn't compute. What you're eating doesn't resemble what you look like.
Yeah, when we first met, Patty was classic pear-shaped figure. She was very thin, very athletic on top, and just larger legs. And at the time, we didn't know what that meant. I just thought it meant that she just had larger legs. I never equated the way she looks and her physical appearance to her health and her activity. I knew she was fit. I knew she could keep up with me on the dance floor, she could keep up with me on the trails, so it was never an issue of fitness.
So I would start having conversations with my doctor, my primary care doctor, and I'd be like, look, I'm at the gym. I'm doing all this stuff, nothing's working. She's like, I know, I'm at the gym with you, and I see you there. You're there when I get there, and you're there when I leave. So I would say, can we check anything? Thyroid, kidneys, anything I could think of, I would ask to get checked. Blood pressure good, cholesterol good. All right, well, so what is it? She'd be like, oh, you're good. Bye. And I'm like, well, no, there's still something wrong. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with my daughter, Noelle, you all met her. And I had a C-section in 2004 with her. And in the recovery, literally like the few hours after the delivery, one of the nurses came in and looked at my legs and said, do you have lymphedema? And I'm like, what? That looks like maybe a little bit of cellulitis. And I'm like, cellulite? And she's like, no, cellulitis. You should really get that checked out. So we went to my doctor afterwards and asked her about it, and immediately must have clots. There must be something wrong from the pregnancy and the C-section. Sent me to heart checks, sent me to get ultrasounds, and everything would keep coming back, you're fine. Okay, I'm fine, but what's wrong? Because now my legs are really getting misshapen. They're not just large. I'm starting to have buildup behind the calves and a lot of fluid. And she said, I don't know what to tell you. So we went online and I literally Googled big legs on Google Images, and up popped legs that looked just like mine. I'm like, babe, who got my picture? And we clicked on it, and it was Big Leg Woman by Jane, and it was her whole blog, and she pointed us into wonderful areas to go check out, and my lovely husband proceeded to print out a ream of paper of what lipedema was and some options that we could look at, and we just started going to all of our doctors. What is this? Look, this is what we have. And my doctor bailed. She was like, you know what? You need to see a specialist. We can't help you. So we found a different doctor. She was fired. And that's a really good point. Don't just listen to what they tell you. You have to be your own advocate a lot of these times, and you all know that, I'm sure. So we can go to the next slide. So luckily, my doctor didn't know anything about it, but was willing to help me learn. And together she said, we'll figure this out. And I did some research in that paper that I had printed out, and there was a Botter School training for MLD and all this wonderful stuff that I knew nothing about. And I found, I'm gonna go to the Botter webpage and look up my area and see if there's any specially trained therapists that I could deal with. And I found one in Albany, about 45 minutes from where I live in New York. And second I walked in, you got lipedema. And because you didn't get diagnosed, you now have lymphedema on top of it. So I'm a lipolymphedema gal. And I was like, yay! Just like Dr. Stiff had said. You're like relieved that there's something to say, oh my God, it's not me, it's not my fault. I'm not crazy. And then she's like, well, you know, we can do some MLD, we can do some rapping, but besides that, there's not really a lot that you can do right now. I'm like, wasn't this diagnosed in 1940? You're telling me in all this time there's nothing? And so I started to listen to that. And they're like, you gotta stay out of the sun, don't get too hot. You gotta keep your legs elevated whenever possible. So I would be in the house, legs up, in the air conditioning, not getting hot. And my life was going on without me. My husband, my daughter, were living. Single parent, basically, doing all kinds of activities that I couldn't participate in. And I got really, really depressed. And I'm like, if there's nothing I can do, why am I doing all this? Why am I trying to go with the doctors?
When Dr. Stutz referred to the mortifications, he really, really touched on a really key point. And I know so many of you have gone through that. And that was a big part of the fear and the isolation. It's just for the mortifications. We would go down the checklist. Whenever we would go out, go to the movies, go to a restaurant, you know, are there going to be chairs that can support me? You know, how far can... Yeah, how far do we have to walk in order to get to, you know, from the parking lot to where we're going to go? You know, is it going to be too warm? How busy is it going to be? Are there going to be crowds? There's this whole checklist we need to go through every time.
And I'm sure a lot of you do that as well. And it's mentally exhausting. And then you end up just not even wanting to go. You just soon stay home. And I did. And I got worse and worse. And at the same time, I stopped going to the gym, which physical activity helps you mentally. It helps to break up some of that anxiety. And I also was in a very bad situation where I worked. It was like a very high, stressful, verbally abusive position. And I had to start doing something emotionally just to get by. Because I'm not me anymore. I don't do anything creative, and I'm a very creative person. I like to write, I like to do art, I like to make jewelry, you name it. I just love to do stuff, and I wasn't doing any of it. So I said, I gotta do something. And I started finding writing classes. I even took intuition classes, dream analysis classes, anything I could think of to emotionally just kind of build myself back up again, so that I was strong in that area of my life, because physically I was getting weaker and weaker and not feeling able to do any part of my life or my family's life. And basically, I let my diagnosis and my depression and my fears of going out change who I was as a person. And that's a really scary place. And it got to the point where I was getting worse. I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk. I sat to do the dishes, to cook dinner. I had to find other ways of just getting by, and I was really fearing at 40 years old that I wasn't going to be here very much longer, because I did something to change that. And that's when my husband said, you know what? I'm going to start eating zone. Okay. And he is the cook in our family. I don't like to cook. I don't find pleasure in it at all. And he told me what it was, and I said, well, if you're cooking, just cook that way for all of us. I really don't have any attachment to food. I didn't really mind any kind of change. I didn't want you to have to do more work than you already were doing for me, because let's not forget, without these guys, our lives would be really difficult. So we started eating the zone diet, and basically, really basically, it's specific amounts of fats, proteins, carbs for how much you weigh and how much activity you do. So how much your body needs. And food is fuel. And about 6 months after that, he had been training, like he said, CrossFit for years, and he has very high-level athletic people that he trains. And every Saturday he would go train. And one Saturday I said, what's the workout of the day? Or as a lot of my fitness ladies know, WOD, W-O-D. And he told me what it was, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. And he's like, yeah, you can. We're gonna modify it for you. I'm like, I can't get on the floor and do a push-up. He's like, well, let's go to the kitchen. There's a lovely sink right there. You're gonna lean against it, and you're gonna use that for your push-up. or a chair. He's gonna make me shut. It's literally just leaning against that. Right? And at first, with my issues of, being proper and right and doing it right, I'm like, well, that doesn't count. And then he reminded me that I carry around a lot more weight than everybody else that he trains. So while they're down on the ground doing the push-up, my version of it is probably still harder than what they're doing. Because that's the benefit about being our size. We're really strong. We may not feel it, but we are, because you have to, just walking with that extra weight really makes you strong. And we modified the pull-up. Obviously, I can't support my own weight. I'm like, are you kidding me? So he had me leaning back and pulling myself forward. And so he left, because I wasn't going to do my workout in front of anybody. But I'm really stubborn. And I waited for him to go teach his people. And I did the workout myself. And it really was a warm-up. It's the CrossFit warm-up. It's, 10 reps of push-ups and pull-ups and squats. A thing called good morning. Kind of bend over. I'll explain it in detail, I'm sure. And it really was just a simple few, maybe 5 exercises, and you did 3 rounds of 10. And I was so tired and sweaty. And I'm like, I used to be able to squat. I bet I could squat again. And I tried, and I almost fell over. And I'm stubborn, so I said, I can do better than that. And I held on to the side of the stair railing, and I did it again. I had to do another one because I wasn't convinced that was going to be good enough. He got home, and I was like, how'd it go? And he's like, good, how'd you do? I'm like, I did it. I did my first CrossFit workout, and it was like March 1st of 2 years ago. Thank you very much. And I proceeded to do that warm-up. That's all I did. That was my activity. I tried doing 3 times a week, and I built up to it. And I got stronger and stronger. And we started training a friend of mine who doesn't have lipedema, but had some weight she wanted to lose. And her husband came along, and it's at our house, and we're walking around my house as like a path. And the first thing that we had to do for a walk was to walk down my driveway and back. And I hadn't been able to do that. I haven't been able to get the mail myself. I park at the end of the driveway, get out, get the mail, get back in the car, drive up the driveway. And I did it, and I just started crying. I'm like, babe, I'm walking. And that is when you lose that ability, to get that back is just incredibly emotional and overwhelming sometimes. So please don't feel like you can't get there. Every little day, every little step, any movement that you can do. My goal when I first started was to be able to get off the floor in case I fell. That was my goal. A little bit later, you're going to see my goal for this year and how I've already crushed that. Right, I'd always been doing some pool work. I have a wonderful therapy pool in Saratoga where I live. And I didn't fear getting in my swimsuit and showing up because they all had stuff that they were dealing with. And I started doing that more. I added that back in when I started doing the CrossFit. And because I could now walk, I'd go a little bit further and I'd go a little bit further. And we have a track by my house, and we'd go around the track. And he's like, all right, that one lap was a quarter mile. I'm like, a quarter mile? How many are in that 5K? He's like, 13. I'm like, okay. But it's slow. It's a buildup of that. I wouldn't have been able to come to this conference 2 years ago. Physically, I just wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to stand up here. I wouldn't have been able to get out of my chair very well. And then I got increased mobility. I started a job about 3 months before we started the zone diet. About a year before, I quit. I quit the abusive position. And I said, that's it, I'm done. I'd gotten strong enough emotionally from all the stuff I was doing to tell him I'm not taking this anymore, I'm done. And I took some time off, and I got a job at a place, and I had to walk a flight of stairs just to get to my office every morning. I parked a block away. It was kind of uphill. And I told him, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep this job because this is a lot of work every day. And it was before we started doing all the other stuff. And he's like, you can do it. Take a break. Who said you can't stop on the road? Take a break. He's like, there's a nice railing on front of that one building. Stop right there. Hold on for a little bit. And then keep going. And I started noticing I could do it. He's like, get your headphones on, get some sneakers on. You'll be in the right mindset, because I was always active like that. And I did, and I was really depressed because it wasn't even one song. It was less than a song to get to my car. And I was having such difficulty doing that every day. But I got better and better, and I just stuck with it. And then I started seeing I could do stairs, I could do walking. I went on my first hike this year in the woods, which was fantastic. I did shopping. One day I'm gonna go with Miss Polly and do one of those high peaks. I don't wanna fall on my bum. But I found out that I love to mow the lawn. You know, I can walk, and it's great because you're kind of assisted, and it's vibration, right? I'm like, it's gotta be good for us. So just finding any kind of activity, put your favorite song on, even if it's one song and you're in your chair, just dance a little bit, just get your body used to moving, do different stuff. Now, the biggest part for me was that fears I lost. Like Bob was saying, I was afraid to go anywhere because I didn't think I'd fit. And when you say fit in, literally fit in. You know, even now I still don't, but I don't fear it anymore. If we go and I can't fit in, I'll go somewhere else. You don't deserve my business if you can't seat me. So all that stuff got better and better. And physically, I lost 60 pounds. I lost 30 inches off my legs. And my therapist was stunned. You're not supposed to be able to do that. And I'm like, I'm sure it's regular fat. I'm sure I had a lot of regular fat that I had to lose. But the changes that it gave me and the ability to move again was really what I wanted to focus on, was living my life. You know, we had gotten to a really hard place in our life where our marriage almost ended because I wasn't part of it anymore. And we started doing things as a family again. And we did that first 5K. And then we did a second one a couple months later. And it took me a long time, over an hour, but I did it. And we can go to the next one. And there I am. That's after my first 5K, and that's my daughter and I at the pumpkin patch, that's by our town, and that's me squatting behind that picture for a long time, because guess who was taking the picture? I think he kind of did that on purpose. But that's who I am, and it's just really about what I can do to keep moving. I think there's one more slide. That was my goal this year. That's a 300-pound tractor tire. And in CrossFit, they flip those. That's fun for them. And yeah, I'm stubborn. I was gonna flip that tire. Last year, I couldn't do it by myself. But the people that we train with, those athletes, they didn't look at me differently when I came to work out with them. I'm like, I can't go work out with them. He's like, yeah, you can, let's go. They're lovely. They took me in like I was one of them, and I felt like one of them. And you know what? Right now, I can lift more than some of them. Thank you very much.